Welcome back to Just Sky Radio on BJPen.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton. Episode 197. We got a good lineup here. First up, we're joined by Michael Chiesa to preview his fight against Court McGee on Saturday night. Really good fight. This should be a battle of some veterans. Michael's really looking forward to this one. Fighting a well-respected guy in Court. He knows it's not going to be an easy fight. Court's extremely durable. This will be his 24th UFC fight, so Michael knows he's got to have his hands full, but he thinks he can get a big win and start really making his way up those welterweight ranks, and especially on a card with the main event being a welterweight fight. He's really looking forward to fighting on this card in Atlanta. And then we close things out talking to Shawne Merriman to preview, just to talk about his promotion, lights out, kind of what everything he's doing in the sport. Obviously, he has an upcoming card. He's got so we're just kind of talking about the state of MMA and just kind of giving his whole thoughts. He's obviously writing a regional promotion, but he thinks the sport's kind of not in the best spot right now, but he thinks he's going to really build something special with lights out. He's attracted some former UFC fighters, former Bellator guys, which is on showcase in the upcoming card. But really chat with Shawne as always. So be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in for the pay-per-view at the end of the month for the next episode of Just Scrap Radio.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're Joe UFC welterweight Michael Chiesa, who's back in action here, headed down to Atlanta. Michael, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Things are good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. See, last time we talked was before your fight. We kind of said Seattle would be pretty tough to do. Like, I know at first they said you were on the card versus TBD, but like nothing kind of came fruition. Like, what kind of happened with that date knocking on there?
Ben, I mean, it was just we were just trying to figure out an opponent, and I mean, just to be completely honest with you, dude, I was in camp for 6 months up until UFC 310, and along the way, I got some bumps and bruises and some injuries in the Ferguson camp. I tore my UCL on my thumb, so I went through that camp with like one hand. Had to get that treated after the fight, and then right when I was cleared to get back to training, I was right into camp for Max Griffin, um, and it just got to the point where like 3 fights in 6 months would have been a lot, and I just felt like physically, I felt like I was on the verge of kind of breaking down. Mentally, I was feeling a little burned out, and the day I was going to give Sean Shelby my answer, that we kind of settled on an opponent, and I found my dog of 10 years dead in my yard, and I was just crushed. And I just like told him what happened, told him I'd call him the next day. And when I called Sean the next day, he just was like, dude, you need to just sit this one out. And it was the best decision for me to make. I will admit it was hard to be at Climate Pledge, working the event, not on the card. It hurt a little bit, but I still stand by that was the right decision for me to make. I just think that it was just too soon. It was too soon of a turnaround, and I was worried that if I forced myself through this camp and burn myself out, like is that gonna remove another couple fights that I could potentially have because it's just burning me out, So um, it was just the right decision for me to make.
And then, kind of, was this kind of the right time frame then for you, or was this like kind of earlier than later? What you thought, like, or was this what you wanted?
This timeline is perfect for me, honestly. I think that June. I mean, when Sean came to me and offered me court, I thought it was great. I chose June just because I want to enjoy a little bit of my summer. I got some things coming up in the broadcasting world in August, and I'd like to kind of clear the path so I can have a little fun after my fight, enjoy summer, and then really hunker down, focus on my broadcasting gigs I have coming up. And this was just the right timeline. And you get to a point when you've been fighting for so long, you kind of want to fight in different places. I've never fought in Atlanta, never fought in Georgia, so I'm excited.
And fighting Court McGee, like a legend like that, like how happy were you to get that name and opponent?
I was stoked on the opponent. Court's a vet, a guy that's won the Ultimate Fighter, a guy that I have, incredible amount of respect for. Court, he's a true veteran, extremely durable, very hard to finish. It's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be one of those fights where I'm going to be challenged in the wrestling, I'm going to be challenged in the grappling. Um, but in those situations, you got to fight fire with fire. I'm preparing for this fight in the way, I felt well prepared when I fought Sean Brady, but there's a few things I wish I could have done different if I had access to the right partners. And I have access to the right guys. I'm really sharpening my wrestling right now. So I feel like I'm going to kind of right my wrong from that fight in this fight. So I'm excited for the challenges that Court McGee brings to the octagon.
After you didn't get on Seattle, like, was there talk with Shawne of like, I'm not doing the Apex and like I'm gonna be in front of a crowd, or did that never really come up? Because like it seems like for you and like Court, like you guys really shouldn't ever be like at the Apex. I'm glad like you guys aren't having to do that, and you should be fighting in front of fans.
Yeah, I mean, I got to do the Apex experience once. I didn't mind it honestly. I can see why there are fighters that get burned out by it, especially guys just making their way into the UFC. Like they're like, you win a fight the Apex, and you're like, you're raring to get in front of a crowd. That's what fighters. That's what we dream of. We love, being in the center of the arena, being the man of the arena, the crowd. But I didn't mind the Apex experience the first time. Um, but at this point in my career, I'd prefer to fight in front of crowds. But I do think that while the Apex gets so much criticism, I think there is a place for it. I think it's a good place for up and coming fighters to just kind of get their feet underneath them, get the UFC experience because the crowd can be overwhelming. I think there's a place for it, but Court and I definitely belong in front of a crowd.
What have you made of Court's last couple fights? Like, I think that fight against Tim Means kind of showed a lot of people like he's not done. He's still a dangerous guy. Like, what have you kind of made of his last couple fights?
I think he looked incredible his last fight. I mean, his last fight he looked really good. I think Court is a guy that I think that fight showed that he still has tread left on the tires. He still has fire in the tank. Um, and it showed that there's the threats that he brings are the things that I have to be aware of. I got to be aware of not letting him get his hands locked, not letting him drag me to the floor, get that ride in. I'm sure he's very heavy on top. His nickname is the Crusher for a reason. So I think that Tim Means fight, he really put it all together. And I mean, it's gonna be a good fight. I know he's gonna push me, he's gonna test me, but I'm gonna do the same to him. I'm gonna fight fire with fire this fight.
Did you ever ask about maybe getting on Juliana's card and just fighting? Because you guys are so close together, and like obviously, I think it would be pretty cool for you guys to be on that card. Like, did you ever ask to that, or is this kind of always the date?
For me, I wanted to fight on this date. I like to fight on the events when like the marquee matchups are in my weight class. So when I started to hear that Buckley and Usman was going to be the main event, um, I was like, that's the card I want to be on because anything can happen, something can happen, someone can fall off, and it can be an opportunity where I could slide into a marquee fight if someone falls off. So that was kind of the thought process for me to put myself on this card. It's funny with Court. A lot of people joke that it's like we look like we're related. It's like the battle of the beards. So may the best beard win. But I'm really excited for this fight for sure.
With Court, like, is this camp all in the West Coast still? Or I know sometimes you train in Vegas. Like, how are you kind of doing this camp?
This camp, I'm doing most of it from home. I spent some time training at City Kid last time I was in Vegas working. John Wood's got a stable of a bunch of killers, but for the most part, doing my thing back home with my head coach Rick Little, Sam Cecilia, Ashton Charlton, Gage Saunders is going to come over from Montana next week, get some rounds in. I go down to Lewiston to train with Austin Arnett and his guys. It's just a short 2-hour drive. I will go spend some time in Vegas to get a couple different looks over the next coming weeks. But yeah, most of my camp is being done out of the Pacific Northwest.
Both you guys high level grapplers. Like, how do you kind of see this one playing out?
I think Court's going to bring the pressure. I'm going to bring the pressure. It's not going to be hard for me to find him. Obviously, I'm going to stick to my strengths. I'm going to look to wrestle him. I'm going to look to beat him with my grappling. Court's, he's never been submitted, and I'm not going to be a fool to like go chasing the sub and burn myself out and let the win kind of just slip through the cracks and get away from me. But I'll stick to my strengths to this fight. It's no secret. It's not like I'm going to pull around out of the hat and decide that I'm a striker all of a sudden. Like I'm going to fight this guy. I'm going to fight my fight. And I think as long as I can just stay sharp and not let it get on top and get his hands locked, I think I can have a good
night. Where do you think a win kind of puts you? Like, I feel like a win here should get you a rank guy next.
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm just going fight by fight, man. If the opportunity presents itself to get back in the rankings and fight a ranked guy, I'm going to jump on it. But I got to go win big. And 170 is a very deep division right now. A lot of movement. It's an exciting weight class with a lot of incredible fighters. So for me, it's just the focus is Court McGee, and just see what happens thereafter. It's just going fight by fight. I think that my performances, as long as I can keep putting guys away, they can throw me back in the rankings and I get myself back in title contention. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I made that mistake before, so it's all about focusing on the task at hand, focusing on Court McGee, and getting the job done on June 14th.
Obviously, the big change in your division was Jack beating Bilal. What you think of that fight? I was surprised. I thought Bilal was going to win. I was surprised, like, how kind of good Jack's takedown defense looks. I thought Gilbert had a lot of success. I thought Bilal would be able to do the kind of the same thing. Like, what you got to think of that fight?
Well, you got to give a little bit of, well, for one, Gilbert is a total stud. And Jack Della was dealing with a broken arm that fight. I believe that was the fight he
Yeah.
broke his arms. Like, I can't imagine having to navigate a fight with a broken arm, defending takedowns, trying to push off your arm to get up. So to go in there very limited and end up winning, that's impressive for him. And I think what led him having so much success in the Bilal fight was he didn't allow himself to get boxed in. Bilal does a good job pressuring guys, changing stances, funneling you to the fence. Once he can funnel you to the fence, that's when he can really start to implement his wrestling and his grappling pressure. But the stance changes and the ability for Jack Della to fight from both stances and not just change stances to like evade, but he would change stances with Bilal and strike with him to avoid the pressure. And he forced Bilal to taking some long shots. And Bilal did get some takedowns, but he did do a good job not settling for bottom position and continuing to keep moving on the ground so he could create transitions to get himself back on the feet. And essentially, he just forced Bilal to fight his fight. So that was very impressive from Jack Della.
You're a guy that moved up lightweight to welterweight. Like, how do you think Islam will do? Because it is like not the usual 10-pound jump. It is a 15-pound jump. I know everyone talks about like Islam's strength, but like, do you think size would play a big role in him moving up? Like, do you think he'll be undersized?
People don't realize how big Islam is. Islam's very, very big. He's a large lightweight, walks around 190-ish, 188, somewhere in there, maybe even a little bit bigger. So I don't think that the size is going to be a huge deal for him. But we'll see. It really depends. But it makes the fight very interesting. Jack Della is not small himself. When you see Jack Della in person, the thing that stands out to me is how wide he is. He has very, very wide shoulders. He's got a very wide back. But Islam, man, I mean, we've seen the way he's able to finish these darce chokes on the wrist. We've seen the way he's able to, get head and arm chokes and not even have to pass all the way to side control. He's got incredible squeeze. And he's got very high fight IQ. So the style matchup is very interesting for sure.
Just final thing, back to you. Like, what is kind of the goal for you then this year? Like, you had a pretty busy year. Like, obviously, fight middle of the year. Like, you hoping at least one more in this year then?
Yeah, the goal is one more for sure. I would like to fight, win this fight, bearing my health, see how things go. Definitely get one in before the end of the year. That November, December timeline for sure. But like I said, man, it's just focus on Court McGee, focus on putting on a good performance. I got a lot of broadcasting gigs coming up, some that are going to be international. I can't say the dates and the locations because they're a secret. But yeah, so once I kind of clear the slate towards the end of September, we'll start gearing up to fight again.
Just one more quick one. I know you do a lot of analyst work. Like, is that what you prefer, or would you like to get into commentary eventually?
I want to I want to be a commentator. That's my goal. I think that that's for me. I love my role as an analyst. I will always love my role as an analyst. And it's very similar to mixed martial arts. It's masterless. You think you have it figured out, and then when the big bosses are correcting you, and you're like realizing things you're doing wrong and realizing things you can do better. It's a very masterless process, but I want more. I want more. I feel like I know I've said for a long time I want to be a commentator. I've said it for a very long time, but I just don't think I've ever been more ready until now. I think I'm very ready to step into that role and do the job well. You'd be surprised. I spend I spend a lot of time studying fights, but I also spend a lot of time when I'm studying these fights. I study the commentators, and I've kind of like each guy has their own niche and what they do well. And I look at the things I think that they do well that I want to emulate myself, and I pull things from each one of them to learn and grow. And I just think that when that time comes, which it will come, I'm going to be ready for it, and I'm looking forward to that goal being achieved. That's my ultimate goal right now. My goal has always been a world championship or being a UFC commentator. And I feel like if I can't get to the belt, I won't feel like this whole journey I've been on the last 17 years was for nothing. So that is the goal. I want to be a UFC commentator.
Well, Michael, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Yeah, thank you, dude. Have a good day.
Yeah. All right, we're joined by Shawne Merriman, ahead of LXF25 coming up here pretty soon. Shawne, how's it going, man?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Like, obviously, a big event for you with Lights Out coming up next Saturday. Like, having Curtis Millender, we'll just start right there. Like, former UFC Bellator guy in your promotion. Like, how exciting and big is that for you in the promotion?
Very, very big, man. We're happy to get these guys, and something I've been talking about really the last several months, and how we kind of picked up steam with the level of fighters, the quality of fighters. Guys who fought at big organizations. Just probably even try to look to get back there, right? Because we're getting so much so many eyeballs now that we're getting some of this top level fighters, man, that is trying to get to the UFC, or maybe they got cut, they was there for a while, and they're trying to get back. And so but also too, man, there's guys that we're constantly trying to build too, right? So we know we're going to get the eyeballs with our main event, former Bellator guys, former UFC guys. So we know that that's going to happen. But in the process, we got some guys we're building who we think are going to be superstars.
For Curtis, like, was it hard to convince him to fight? Because you see a lot of these guys, once they leave the big promotions, like, it is hard for them to go back to these like smaller promotions where they want to continue trying to get the biggest fights or the biggest promotions possible.
Well, I think the landscape has changed when you talk about biggest promotions now, right? Obviously, UFC being the biggest. And really, it's just scattered at that. I think that most people look at maybe the PFL, but again, when you talk about big promotions, you start to think about like really viewership and distribution, right? Like I look at it from that standpoint: how many people watch you, how many people show up, and so if you have people, and we're selling out, a couple, a little over 1,000, sometime up to 2,000 per fight, and we're distributed not only on my network, Lights Out Sports TV, but we're on Fubo after, we're on Amazon Freevee and Pluto and Swerve Combat. You got a couple of UFC Fight Passes coming up sometime soon. So again, when you talk about big promotions, I look at it a little bit different. For me, it's how many people watch us, and we have a tremendous amount of eyeballs on us all the time.
That is something I want to touch on. So we'll just talk about it now. Is the landscape of MMA? It is a lot different. Like, you have Bellator no more. Like, PFL isn't really signing a lot of these top guys. Doesn't seem like they're cutting more people than signing. Like, what are your kind of thoughts? Because I've talked to fighters, talked to managers. Like, a lot of them don't think it's good for the sport right now where it's in. Like, what are your kind of thoughts of where the landscape?
I agree. And I've been vocal about PFL and what I feel about them. And there's nothing personal against Don Davis or Peter Murray at all. It's just that when you don't know this business and you get a ton of money, you gotta do something to make a dent in it, right? UFC always going to be UFC. They'll be the big dogs forever. But at the end of the day, you have to start making way where you could position yourself as that strong number two. I don't think they are. And again, when you constantly look, we just had something happen with us. We were supposed to have a fight at Commerce Casino Palma in San Diego. And we had some problems with, some state regulation stuff with, EMTs and ambulances, and it was a bunch of like state requirements that we found out very late because borders changed. So it was like really, really messed up that it just literally changed months ago. We had to move the fight back to Long Beach. Now, typically, that's somebody else. They're going to cancel the fight or postpone it or something like that. Like, we have a great staff, and we got a great group. And I feel like I got a great team with me. And so we got to fight back to Long Beach. We kept it back on, and we're actually selling more tickets now that we moved to fight. And so, again, when you consider yourself and say that you're a big organization, you can't be canceling a fight. I think that they canceled or pushed back Paris, PFL Paris, like just recently. That was supposed to happen in May. Like, you can't do that. You know, these guys, these fighters are training. They're putting their time and their bodies on the line, their lives on the line, and so you can't just be postponing fights and canceling fights. And that's something we don't believe in doing, man. So again, there's a lot of really good up and coming promotions here in the country. I know not a lot, but there's a handful, like 3 or 4 that I think that really has a shot to take the next step, and we're just one of them.
Do you think like doing that, like keeping your events on, signing guys like Millender will make like guys not even from California but all over, maybe even the world, that are like, hey, like this is a promotion I want to go fight for and kind of get me to that next step?
It's happening now. It's happening now. Our thing is that, you know, we're getting so many eyeballs is that people don't start to not look at us as just a regional promotion anymore, right? And so again, you up against that battle too, where you have Melinda, you have I'm drawing a blank, Renato Valente, that has fought in bigger promotions, and they kind of see what we're doing. And so we come across as a much bigger promotion than what we really are. For one, I got a great team of experienced team that's been in this business for 20 plus years. That's each. And so that's one. But two, I've always came to this business with in this sport in general, with a different mindset into growing it. Right. I got a chance to work with Bellator. It was a privilege to work with Scott Coker and that whole team over there for years. In fact, you know, some of the team is with me now, working with me now and helping me grow lights out. But when you come in this business, you can't just have fights. You got to have things that are building other verticals and content, tech. You got to have something else that's going to take you to the next level to draw in more eyeballs and viewership and traffic. You can't do it nowadays just having fights. It just won't work.
When you launched Lights Out, like, did you think you'd get this big this quickly? Like, it hasn't been that long for you, especially with COVID kind of going on right when you guys were launching.
Yeah, honestly, if COVID didn't hit, we were at Fox Sports Western Prime Ticket. We actually moved into like Florida with Southwest, Fox Sports Southwest, Fox Sports Sun, Texas. We were growing like hell, and Fox was actually going to move us up to the main Fox at some point, and really. We were on our way, and then Sinclair came and turned into Bally's, right? They bought the regionals of Fox Sports, and that's how we ended up at Fubo Sports, Fubo was great to work with as well. So we were on our way. We would have been much bigger than we are right now if COVID didn't set us back 2 years. But again, where we're at right now, we're primed to get the Melindas of the world. We're primed to get the Valentes, and we just had Tyrell Fortune on the last card, who I think was probably going to have another fight or two with us and be gone. We got Jake Babian that's coming up as well, who has like 3 finishes within 20 seconds. He's another guy. So we got these up and coming guys who we're building also. But every fight that we're planning on having now, our main event and co-main event, probably 1 or 2 fights from going back or getting into the UFC.
Is that hard for you to just kind of keep fighting? Like, you start promoting these guys, and then a lot of them are just gone after a couple fights. You gotta have to find the next patch for you guys.
I mean, I love University of Maryland playing college football, but I wanted to play in the NFL too, right? I mean, so I get it. But what we're seeing is that instead of these guys rushing off and looking to jump and get to the UFC right away, they don't mind because how we run our organization. They don't mind coming in the viewership and the feedback that they get from everybody. They don't mind fighting for us another fight or two until they get the call. Like, that's what's happening right now. They'll say, hey, we'll come in and fight with you another 1 or 2 times before we get that call. And so that's happening more times than not now. And two, man, we want to be in this thing for the long haul. We are building very organically, like with local superstars and state amateurs right on the undercard. Like, we're doing those things to build the brand. And people always think of how UFC got as big as they are. They didn't get big like that because they got a ton of money and that was it. Like, they built a strong brand and they built it strategically. And for us, we want to build our local superstars, and we're spreading out to SoCal, and we're spreading out to get more distribution in Europe and the Middle East now that's coming. UFC Fight Pass is not even up yet, but just we're building it the right way. We don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. And so when you're doing it like that, you don't have any worries on how big you're going to get eventually.
What is the goal for you? Like, ideal, like not even like the long-term goal for you and the promotion?
For one, really to establish some of this tech that we have coming up, right? We had a deal with Shot Track, a partnership with Shot Tracker where we put chips in the gloves. They can measure speed, power, punch, velocity, G-force, like really cool stuff. There's going to be a lot of data coming from that we're going to license out to betting companies. I mean, we got all kind of stuff coming. And also PTF Lab, which is a AI sponsorship that we took a big partnership in. So now the sponsors are going to be able to change on the mat per fight, when people watch it on the screen. And somebody can see it different in Asia. They can see it different in a different state all the way down to a different zip code. And we also want to license out this technology to other combat sports organizations. We're not going to keep it for ourselves. The regional promotions are hurting right now. There's a lot of hurt in these regional promotions. For one, the sponsorships are not doing well. Obviously, with the economy and tariffs and different like that, like people are not jumping and spending big money right now, especially in the regional promotions. They'll do it in the UFC because it's the UFC. But, there are a lot of regional promotions are struggling. That's why I'm going to end up licensing out this tech to other combat sports promotions.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems with regional promotions is guys are so eager to get to the UFC where they sign when they're like 4-5-0 and they're not ready and they go 0-3 and then they're cut and then it's just like, well, and then you see a lot of them just kind of fade off. Like, I think it'd be way better if guys actually take their time and don't rush and just, I know being in the UFC is like obviously everyone's dream, but I just think if you see a lot of guys take a lot more time and get there, they'll have longer careers in the UFC.
Yeah, look, I rarely get involved in the fighter side. Like I train with some of these guys at Extreme Couture or Body Shop down in Long Beach or Black House down in LA or when I'm down in San Diego. I train with a lot of these Florida. I train with a lot of these guys. I'll pop in if I'm traveling for work. I'll pop in fight ready, whatever it is in Arizona. I'll pop in, and train with these guys. So I stay away from dealing directly with the fighters when it comes to stuff. I'll push certain things through that need to be pushed through. But we had a couple fighters who got called by the UFC. What I said, dude, you're not ready. Like they called him up, and I've trained with them before, so I know exactly where they are. I've seen their progress, and they had big finishes with us. And I said, man, you're not ready. Do not take that call. Like, do not, just don't go. And I very rarely ever get in that position. I don't with anything. Guy went and looked terrible, got knocked out. And again, he's probably not going to get that call again. He went there for his first time. He looked out of shape. He didn't look all that great and lost badly. And so he's not going to get that call again. So you're right. They should spend more time with somebody like us or a regional promotion in the area. Build up, that experience. Get as much cage time as you possibly can. And then, work your way up. There's nowhere to go. But to the fighters' credit, there's only about 3 regional promotions in the country that's worth staying with no matter what. Mm-hmm. Truthfully, there's like 3 regional promotions in the country that has the quality of fights, quality of visibility, quality of an organization and staff and the team and everything else that's even worth staying with until you get to the UFC. So,
I think one of the smartest things you guys do is it's all free on Lights Out, where you see a lot of these regional promotions. I know they kind of need money, but they charge pay-per-view money, like almost similar price to what the UFC pay-per-view are. And I think that turns a lot of people away because they're just not going to pay it. Like, what was kind of decision to do that model, just stream it on the app?
Yeah, when I launched Lights Out Sports TV, so my thing is visibility. If you got a good team, a good sales team, sponsorship team, or whatever it is, if people are watching you, then you sell, CPMs, you sell impressions, you sell that, hey, such and such many people watched our fight. Now, you won't make as much money up front, but you're getting 2 things. You're getting out there because it's free. So Lights Out Sports TV, Lights Out Sports TV is completely free. We've got a bunch of free live sports in there. And then a week later, we're on Fubo. We're on, the regionals, and we were on MSG and Pluto and Swerve Combat, UFC Fight Pass. We're going to announce a couple other distribution partners, Amazon Freeview, and we're going to be shown that a week or so later. So we're getting a ton of visibility, but live, I wanted as many people to see it live as possible. Again, who is that helping? That's helping the fighters, right? That's helping us go out and sell more sponsors because we know we got, record-set numbers of people watching. It's not smart, in my opinion, if you're trying to build and you're putting things behind the paywall, because there's enough subscriptions out here. People are not trying to pay for that shit. Like they're trying to get away from one more bill that they got to pay. So that's why, I end up making Lights Out Sports TV. We run ads. We run some ads and stuff during the fight. But again, we want as many people watch the fight as possible.
Just two more quick things. Obviously, just in California right now, like, is there goals to expand this out in the U.S. and get into different markets here?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting calls from casinos and all over the country. Like in Florida and some in the Midwest, North Cal, a lot of North Cal, Arizona, and so even here in Vegas. I'm based in Vegas, so we're getting a bunch of requests to come out and move. But again, it has to be worth it for us to move. Like, I'm smart about it and how we move and things. We're very strategic in this whole thing. Like I said, when you don't plan on going anywhere for a long time, it's about building. And that's what we want to do. We feel like, we're one of the top organizations that's not the UFC in the country, but we have to, we got to do something to keep growing. So
final thing, bit selfish. I'm a huge Bills fan. Grew up watching you. What are your thoughts on Buffalo this upcoming season? Like, every year I think they're getting close, and they're just getting over Kansas City is tough for them. I
think the biggest thing for Buffalo is, and the problem is going to happen, is people get better in a division. Mm-hmm. That's the problem that Buffalo is going to have. Like, Drake May is better. Now they got Diggs out there. They got a couple pieces. They drafted well. And so the Bills' problem is going to be it's just teams getting better in the division. You got to think the Jets are going to be better than they were last year. And so, again, you're coming up in a point where – but they got to get over the hump, man. I mean, they got to get over the hump. And by the way, anybody that's saying that Josh Allen is this, Josh Allen that, let me tell you my path to get to the Super Bowl back when I was playing. We had to get through Ben Roethlisberger first. Then we got to get through Peyton Manning. Oh, by the way, now you got to get through the final balls in Tom Brady, right? So that was the path to get to the Super Bowl. It's very similar now. Who do you got to get through? You got to get through Josh Allen. You got to get through Patrick Mahomes, I guess. Lamar Jackson. Right. So the path to get to the Super Bowl now is much tougher than it's ever been. It really reminds me of the time back when I was playing, and when people asked us, hey, why don't you have a Super Bowl? Well, his name is Ben Roethlisberger. His name is Peyton Manning. His name is Tom Brady. That's what we had to go through. And so I think the Bills will get over the hump. I think they can do it this year because you can't keep knocking at the door for so long and not do it, right? Or you're going to have to hit the reset button. So I think their biggest shot is to try to get over the hump this year.
Well, Shawne, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.